Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back your lovely faces to a brand new video here on the channel. Well, it's Sunday, the 1st of October. I was like, you know what, I'm going to have the day off. Not going to make any videos. I'm going to go and see my family, you know, my sister, my niece and everything else. And I was like, you know what, I'll probably just play Resident Evil 4 later on with my mates. Until I opened up Twitter and I saw this. GB News axes Dan Wootton after the Fox Storm and Catfish scandal, the full story. Dan Evans and Tom Latcham revealed Dan Wootton's departure from GB News looks set to be permanent and examine the true cost of the network of sticking by a $600,000 a year employee who broke editorial codes with impunity and engaged in sordid activities under those pseudonyms. Dan Wootton needs a miracle to save his $600,000 a year job as GB News star presenter as owner Sir Paul Marshall seeks to detoxify the brand as he bids for the Daily Telegraph. Wootton, whose private and professional conduct has been the subject of a series of exposés by this newspaper, was informed on Friday that his services are unlikely to be required at this station again, alongside those of actor-turned-activist Laurence Fox. The pair at the centre of misogyny backlash after Fox staged the rant against Ava Evans, and it attracted some 7,300 viewer complaints to Ofcom. But last night, a GB News editorial source told this newspaper Dan Wootton has left the building and a lot of people are relieved. There has been anger and disappointment about all the negative attention. Good journalists have been questioning their futures at the channel. Dan's face was left off a big promotion last week. It will be a miracle if he's seen here again. The absence of 40-year-old Wootton has rocked the network he joined as a founding host 2.5 years ago, and which Robinson on Friday credited him as being significant to the building of through his influence on recruitment both behind and in front of the camera. While Wootton smiled through a public appearance on Friday night at Westminster Central Hall, this newspaper can reveal he is privately considering, following the loss of his $250,000 Daily Mail job, and obviously the Barbarian Times, quitting the UK to return to his native New Zealand. Bye-bye, Dan. Go. A source close to the situation told the Barbarian Times it has been made clear to Dan he will not be broadcasting again on GB News anytime soon. Just as he will not be writing for Mail Online. Right now he feels as if he might prefer just to go back home to Wellington to be near his family. The Marshall Plan. Although the crunch for Wootton and GB News may have seemed to come swiftly following this Ava Evans incident, in which he smirked as Fox branded her these, the Barbarian Times can reveal that GB News founding stakeholder Sir Paul Marshall has been losing patience with Wootton for 2 months. The potential for harm to the brand became obvious when this newspaper unmasked Wootton in July as the hidden controller of Martin Branning and Maria Joseph, 2 catfishing identities used to fraudulently obtain compromising digital explicit material from scores of men over the last 10 years, and in some cases blackmail them. In addition, Barbarian Times handed a dossier of evidence outlining some of its findings about Wootton's personal behaviour to the police, 28 pages and probably a lot more now, on the June the 20th. We will be updating it for detectives shortly as our 3 investigation into Wootton continues. 18th of July, Wootton uses GB News platform to launch the attack, which we all saw, while admitting the past errors of judgment, but denying criminal behaviour, but not to being or connected to Branning and Joseph. The network's ownership took notice. Not only did it place Wootton in breach of his employer's own editorial charter, which outlaws ad hominem attacks on individuals, it highlighted a tabloid presenting style known to be disliked by Sir Paul Marshall, who despite having no control of the output, holds the purse strings, on an asset that lost around £28.3 million in the last accounting period. In addition, the catfishing scandal emerged as Sir Paul was hiring bankers for a mole list to advise on the £600 million takeover for the Daily Telegraph and the Sunday Telegraph, the acquisition of which would make him a kingmaker of the British Conservative Party. Obviously, Murdoch is no longer here. A well-positioned source in the finance world told The Times, Paul has been watching the fallout around Wootton from the outset, somewhat askance. He is fully across the financial health of the company, but has even greater interest in its political credibility. Paul has never been comfortable with Wootton's extreme tabloid style. There has been a conversation around improving the presenting personnel for a couple of months. In particular, Paul disliked Wootton's habit of staging personal attacks. They are short-sighted and have huge capacity to backfire, as has been demonstrated perfectly with the Ava Evans incident, but she still needs to apologise for what she said. There was concern that Wootton's antics were making GB News a parody of the free speech channel it was intended to be. It sat very poorly with the original vision to set a credible alternative tone for the right-of-centre political conversation in the UK. Wootton's future there has been in question for a lot longer than many people, even Wootton himself, might have believed. The clean-up begins. Wootton, Fox, Robinson are not the only GB News staff likely to be affected by this, as it faces 12 current Ofcom investigations, with more complaints under consideration for further action by the communications regulator. Everyone can see that GB News is looking more and more amateurish. An editorial source at the broadcaster said, "There has been a hemorrhage of journalistic talent this year, and it shows. People recognise that the presenters have been having too much power, while far too many of the production staff are hopelessly underexperienced. It was inevitable under those circumstances that standard and objectivity would suffer. A rolling network with an operating budget of around $40 million a year should have steady hands at the tiller, not Unilevers without knowledge of character for senior responsibility. The last time any news channel collected Ofcom investigations like GB News, it was Russia Today, before it was stripped of its broadcasting licence. GB News needs to detoxify and shape up fast if it's to avoid the same. The Times has spoken to a variety of credible sources within GB News who say moves are now afoot to clean house, apply standards after a series of broadcasting embarrassments, including a presenting performance by newscaster Martin Daubeny this month, in which he swore on air over an autocue failure. In recent weeks, this newspaper has also been in close correspondence with GB News about a series of stories examining other culture and workplace practices, which the Bylan Times will soon publish. That process involved the presentation of a long list of questions relating to this, and recruitment at the network, promoting GB News to appoint external legal counsel in the form of eminent London law firm Payne Hicks Beach. The Bylan Times understands that this has led GB News to look carefully into the files of certain employees. The sexist broadcast by Wootton and Fox sealed their fates, caused a media storm that saw Wootton grovelling to Ava Evans to save his job. Distancing himself from Fox, Wootton posted on X, "I apologise," which we saw, and it was just like, come on, mate, you knew exactly what was going to happen. But then, obviously, by here now, it goes, by these here, that Fox threw Wootton into the bus, which we saw the text messages. He was like, well, he was laughing. And that's where this goes over by here. But this is where it gets interesting. Gossip site Pop Bitch went on to claim that Wootton ignored repeated warnings from production staff and senior management in real time to stop his monologue, and then declined to air an apology to Miss Evans, instead deciding to offer a touch of balance by saying that the political editor was beautiful. His subsequent reaction to finding himself in hot water is said to have cost him the loyalty of a production team that has stuck with him even as the Bylan Times 3 investigation into his private and professional conduct placed him under a significant cloud. Speaking on condition of being anonymous, a GB News production source said he was raging on Wednesday morning, trying to throw people under the bus when he spoke to his team, blaming everyone but himself. True narcissist. It cost him the backing of about 2/3 of a group that was loyal despite all the catfishing and other dark behaviour people outside were constantly talking about. Notably, Ben Leo, the editor of Dan Wootton Tonight, and previously a Wootton loyalist, removed mention of his host and executive editorial role from his Twitter bio, as did senior producer James Linney. Not adding up. On Friday, GB News chief executive Angelus appeared on BBC Radio 4 to condemn the Ava Evans exchange, saying it should not have happened. He said GB News will be investigating it and looking very closely at the production process that went into the programme. Well, to be honest, really, with that part right by there, you've had Fox put out all these tweets showing exactly what he was going to say. And it goes on there about this led Wootton to win the public support of another regular, Calvin Robinson, who's also been permanently axed, supposedly. According to the Sunday Times, Alan McCormick, GB News chairman, he sent an email to staff on Friday evening saying that the broadcaster is not a place that tolerates personally denigrating comments or insults, and pushing back against the narrative and falsehood that conflates free speech with the right to verbally go against them. The extreme turbulence around GB News, characterised by operations at his Paddington Basin studios, which some staff past and present describe as chaotic and rudderless, and beset with examples of racism, misogyny, and this, as revealed by the Byline Times in August, has translated into problematic viewing and advertising revenue figures. And now we go by here where it literally shows you how much is gone. It's literally lost 30,000 viewers each night and 23% respectively in how much the average overall has gone down. And then it's going in now to advertising, which this is actually quite funny. So with Wootton's continued command of his GB News platform, all these big people who do the adverts, the big brands didn't want to go on the channel. They were like, yeah, we don't want to go on it, and if we are on it, we don't want to be in Wootton's show, in the adverts for that. And it goes on to say that they're losing £84,000 a day, around 31 million over the 2021 to 2022 financial year, and it's likely to remain at around 28.3 for the 22-23 period. Now it says about the adverts as well, that literally the minor brands were on the channel, and they were showing more of them, which showed a 43% slump in income, or £49,586 over the period, as GB News crammed its airwaves with niche brands, although this may be in part be associated with a summer holiday slowdown of advertising. Wootton unmasked. The Dan Wootton saga began when the Byline Times started to reveal how the presenter been hiding behind fake online identities to trick and bribe scores of men. And obviously, we saw a lot of stuff about that, which obviously you do have the Metropolitan Police in London. They have a lot of the stuff for it as well. It goes on about Alex Truby, where they did an interview with him, and obviously on Twitter, he put out his big tweet about it, which has been viewed more than 15 million times. And obviously, we've seen how Dan Wootton and everyone, they literally belittled it, which is like, dude, what the hell are you doing? And it obviously has sparked a 3-year investigation, which has so far revealed evidence that Wootton catfished friends, blackmailing at least one, and releasing explicit material to third parties without consent. So that one there is basically distributing of adult material without them knowing, voyeurism, blackmail, fraud. So there's a lot more now than just the 3 that we've always gone on. And it goes by here as well that following the Times' initial stories, some prominent colleagues, including Fox, Turner, Young, Conservative Deputy Chairman, and all these people, they all went on Twitter and they were like, we support him. When more things came out, they all literally deleted the tweets and he took a step back, which was actually kind of funny. Now it also says about that Wootton, he also set up the legal crowdfund, if you remember. £150,000 was his target. It's disappeared now. The page has been deleted. And it raised £35,000. But as it's saying by here, the funds quickly raised around £35,000 and attracted support. And it's even gone on to say that with this money, no one knows where it's going to go. Because with this website, I've asked around a few people, and by the looks of things, this website supposedly, say you do a crowdfund on there, and you don't use it for what you actually tell everyone you're going to use it for, tough shit. You get to keep the money. How is that even legal? That is just insane. And also we found out that he went to lesser paid colleagues by asking them to contribute, and he also went to one of his previous targets, asking for money from them. It's absolutely crazy. Useful until they aren't. Wootton has presented a defined front throughout the developing scandal. Until this week, he was appearing routinely on his show, offering views on the woke politics and matters, including allegations and all this against Russell Brand. Away from the cameras, it has been a very different story. Wootton broke down in the GB News green room during the first advert break of the July 17th broadcast, when they started publishing the results of his investigation. Sources described the atmosphere among his 16-strong production team. It was like a funeral. Backroom staff were left with more questions than answers when Wootton composed himself and returned to the airwaves. And this one, obviously, it's the following day he did the attack on the Byline Times, journalism, and also against his former partner, Mr. Truby, who he's the one who named Wootton as Martin Branning in early 2020, and whose social media post has had more than 15 million views. But then obviously he went and done his nefarious players, Dark Forces trying to get me and this channel taken down and everything else. Then he attacked the Byline Times. But then we found out that the journalists who have been doing the investigation, they had blood smeared over their windows. They had emails that were going to say that they're going to have bad stuff happen to them. They were hacked. There was so many things going on, and it's like, right, okay then. But then, obviously, it was only last week that GB News chief Angelus, he addressed them, telling Conservative MP Dame Caroline Dinenage, who I do not like one bit, that they were being monitored rather than investigated by him. However, the Byland Times can reveal in July a meeting with Angelus, whom this newspaper has since revealed was himself the subject of SH, and leading to the payoff of a female former staffer who has got a NDA so she can't talk about it, that Wootton is understood to have admitted to being Branning, but claimed that the alter ego was a cover for him to be able to use dating apps as he was too well known for his first name. Angelus then privately told colleagues of the channel that while some of what Wootton admitted was sordid, he saw keeping him on air as a stand against cancel culture. Yeah, even though everything was going against him. And then you got by here that all of which has played poorly with GB News financial backers, which alongside Sir Paul Marshall, who was chairman and chief investment officer of Marshall Wace, a £45 billion hedge fund, which include Dubai-based investors Legatum. And with Legatum as well, it does say by here, and obviously the biggest purpose of Dubai is the investment from the people to possess political influence in the UK. A senior GB News editorial source told him, there's an agenda, they are anti-Europe, anti-immigrant, and pro-Boris Johnson on everything. People like Wootton are useful until they aren't. At this point, it's an easy commercial and political decision. Mutiny risk. As the Byland Times has continued to break its investigation, relying in part on the testimonies of a wealth of digital and human sources, some close to Wootton fell wrongly under suspicion. Wootton, meanwhile, was adopting the carrot and stick approach. He started coming into the newsroom much earlier than was his habit, during the afternoon rather than 2 hours before his 9 p.m. show. Another GB News employee said he was much more collegial. He started bringing in cakes and biscuits for everyone, although in the past he had treated us quite poorly. Everyone said it felt like he was trying to buy support. That is exactly what he's doing. However, the storm surrounding Wootton's personal and professional conduct and his continued platforming in direct contrast to GB News over the Hugh Edwards and Philip Schofield, which he said, if there's rumours, they should be taken off air and get done. They didn't do it. And they're like, oh, we're going to stick up against cancel culture. Yeah, we're going to keep him on here. No, it doesn't work like that. And it goes on regarding, obviously, the journalists led to the recent coverage against Brand. Even with the departures of Wootton, Fox, Robinson, the station has its work cut out to stave of a potentially existential threat to its Ofcom regulatory future, amongst criticisms of a lack of impartiality, allegations of a toxic work environment, and a staffing crisis. It's an extremely unusual number of Ofcom investigations to be facing. Well, you got 12. It's crazy. In the mainstream, they are like hen's teeth. It's so rare for a channel to have even one investigation, maybe two, in a bad year. These guys got 12. GB News runs at about $40 million a year operating costs, so you would expect there to be a team of compliance advisors. Yeah, you would, for that much. Making sure editorial is sound, exterior counsel reviewing the process from a political to a regulatory point of view, asking the basic questions, what can we say on air or not? You would expect a channel that size to have a team in place. The Insider said, ever since they covered the Philip Schofield scandal, they have been like a dog with a bone on every hot-button issue. They have really waded in on the trans conversation, for example, and other pop culture-esque issues. They're under the microscope with Ofcom for being politically controversial, when to do so would be a breach of the regulations. Their Don't Kill Cash petition is very much in that territory. GB News has a lot of ex-newspaper people working for it, and is taking a Daily Mail approach to broadcasting, noticeably tabloid. But the mainstream newspaper industry is unregulated, while broadcasting very much is. Yes, it has seen an overall improvement in viewing figures year on year, but at what cost? Now, it goes on about Ofcom ruled in March, the morning show, that the Conservative MPs did not represent and give due weight. GB News also under scrutiny on Friday's interview of Home Secretary. Editorial source spoke of the unwelcome welfare of Ofcom investigations, which are making the credible journalists of GB News worry about their reputation and impartiality. But that's what we got, folks. So it looks like that Dan Wootton is gone from GB News, which I think is glorious. Seeing that this has actually happened now, it's like, right, okay, but why just over something stupid like this? I keep saying that, but it's also, well, they were looking for something to give him the push. They were looking, right, how can we get rid of him? How can we just shove him to get rid of him? What can happen? Obviously, this little incident with Fox and Ava Evans was the actual reason for them to go, right, bye-bye, that's it, you're gone. But ladies and gents, let me know what you think of this down below. Are we going to see Wootton anywhere else? Is he going to go back home? Let me know your thoughts down below, guys. If you are new to the channel, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you all soon.